Hello guys, so today I'll be reading this book. So it is a book from Jay Shetty, who's been a social media influencer from a long time. He talks about spirituality, mindset. So it says over here, think like a monk. So it also says here like train your mind for peace and purpose every day. Okay, so today I'll be reading this book. So it's recently published. So let's just read and see what are the things that are being told in this book. So it is also said on the back of this book is when you think like a monk, you'll understand. So the book defines how to find your purpose, how to overcome negativity, and how to stop overthinking. So this is one of the major problems that I feel our generation has a lot because they overthink a lot, and purpose is another main question or an aspect of life which many people miss upon. So why comparison kills love? Okay, so all these questions, so there are many more. I'll be reading. All these questions are answered in the book. So how to use your fear? It says how to use your fear. Why you can't find happiness by looking for it. How to learn from everyone you meet. Why you are not your thoughts. Why kindness is crucial to success, and much more. Okay, so all these such topics, so you can see over here all such topics, these are the questions that I just read out. So all these questions or these general questions, these will be answered in the book. So let's just start. So the MRP of this book is around 499, so that's roughly around 500 Indian rupees. So you can order it on Amazon or Flipkart. So in pounds it is around 9.99 pounds. So you can just go ahead and check it out. But Jay Shetty has always been one of the greatest influencers. He has a podcast related to mindset and all such things. You can definitely go try it out, and then you can just comment down below what you feel if you have read this book. So please let me know what are your reviews on this book, because this is the book of Jay Shetty that I am reading for the first time. So please let me know. Okay, so without wasting much of a time, let's just start. So think like a monk, train your mind for peace and purpose every day. Jay Shetty. So he says that for my wife, who is more monk than I will ever be. So if you follow Jay Shetty, so you'll be knowing Radhi, his wife, Radhika. So he calls her by nickname Radhi. So let's just see. I'll just read out the contents. Okay, so introduction, part 1. It is let go. So the first chapter is identify. I am what I am. I am what I think I am. Negativity. The evil king goes hungry. Third chapter is fear. Welcome to the Hotel Earth. Intention. Blinded by the gold. So in this chapter, the kind of meditation is you have to do is breath meditation. So normally known as Vipassana in yogic culture in general terms. So if you want to go and search about Vipassana, then you can definitely go and search. So the chapter 2 is the second phase is purpose. Purpose, the nature of scorpion. Routine. Locations has energy, time has memory. Okay, so we'll be going deep into this once we start reading it. So I'll just complete the outer part, the mind, ego. So in this, from purpose, routine, the mind, the ego, the kind of meditation that you have to do is visual kind of meditations. Okay, so the third part of the book says about gratitude, relationships and services. Okay, so in this in these three parts, the meditation you have to do is chanting meditation. Whatever mantras it can be, whatever mantras it can be. So you have to chant spiritual wordings, be it of any kind of religion. So okay, so let's just start the introduction part. So I am here on the introduction page. So this is the content, so this is the introduction. So I'll just start reading. Okay. So introduction. If you want a new idea, read an old book attributed by Ivan Pavlov, among others. Okay, so just a second. So I'm here on the introduction page. So if you want a new idea, read an old book attributed by Ivan Pavlov, among others. So let's just start. When I was 18-year-old, in my first year of college at Cass Business School in London, one of my friends asked me to go with him to hear a monk give a talk. I resisted. Why would I want to go hear some monk? I often went to see CEOs, celebrities, and other successful people lecture on campus, but I had zero interest in a monk. I preferred to hear speakers who'd actually accomplished things in life. My friend persisted, and finally I said, as long as we go to a bar afterward, I'm in. Falling in love is an expression used almost exclusively to describe romantic relationship. But that night, as I listened to the monk talk about his experience, I fell in love. The figure on stage was a 30-something Indian man. His head was shaved and he wore a saffron robe. He was intelligent and charismatic. He spoke about the principle of selfless sacrifice when he said that we should plant trees under whose shade we did not plan to sit. So this is a deep meaning sentence, guys. So by reading this sentence, I can also say that you can relate this sentence to a very famous thing that our generation, like I personally follow. I don't know about other people, but you can relate these things to karma. So it says, when he said that we should plant trees under whose shade we don't plan to sit. Okay, so it means like you go on doing good deeds and good things will come to you automatically, even though if you are not planning for it. So I feel, or I get a vibe of karma from this sentence. Okay, let's just continue. I felt an unfamiliar thrill run through my body. I was especially impressed when I found out that he had been a IIT Bombay student, which is the MIT of India, and like MIT, nearly impossible to go into. And let me tell you guys, so IIT Bombay is a very big college. So getting admission in that college is only impossible, but he was a student of an MIT, which is next to impossible to get into. He traded that opportunity to become a monk, walking away from everything that my friends and I were chasing. Either he was crazy or he was onto something. My whole life I had been fascinated by people who'd gone from nothing to something, like Rich's stories. Now, for the first time, I was in the presence of someone who'd deliberately done the opposite. He's given up the life the world had told me we should all want, but instead of being an embittered failure, he appeared joyous, confident, and at peace. In fact, he seemed happier than anyone I'd ever met. At the age of 18, I encountered a lot of people who were rich. I listened to a lot of people who were famous, strong, good looking, all three. But I don't think I'd met anyone who was truly happy. Afterward, I pushed my way through the crowds to tell him how amazing he was and how much he'd inspired me. How can I spend more time with you? He asked the monk that he had gone. I heard myself asking. I felt the urge to be around people who had the values I wanted, not the things I wanted. So, let me share a thing with you because I just completed my engineering degree in mechanical. But I feel that you should be always surrounded with people who don't have things like, your mind is such a beautiful thing, because your mind is like water. Whenever a water is put in whatever type of container, it takes the shape of the container. Okay, so your mind is like that. So you choose people who want to be around you. Okay, so you are the creator and destroyer of your own community. So make sure your community is you know have your community should have a good knowledge. They should be talking about new ideas, not the old people mentality. I don't say the old people mentality is bad, but they strive on to something negative for too long. But spirituality and meditation is all about acceptance, getting accepting the things that are like that in the reality and moving on around it. Okay, so finding solutions for your problems. And there's a word called as adhyatmak in in Hindu religion. So adhyatmak is basically coming towards yourself. That is spirituality. What explains spirituality is knowing oneself completely. That brings you closer to spirituality. So this is a very deep word that all monks use. They explain it through this. And if a monk or some people say that, okay, you join this class and after some days you will be enlightened. So I heard Sarvesh Shashi, so he's the founder and the owner of Sarva. So he says like his Guruji, when he was younger, he went to his Guruji. That's a long story. You can search for Sarvesh Shashi on YouTube and you'll get all his videos. So he says, so his Guruji says, so if you think I can enlighten you, then you are a bigger fool. And if you're trusting me that I'll enlighten you, then I am a bigger fool. Okay, so there is no such thing according to his words. So he says there is no such thing as hello around your head and you will become so powerful. It is not like that. So meditation and spirituality is all about coming to oneself. Okay, so sorry, I just took out a lot of time, and let's just start. I felt the urge of being around people who had the values I wanted, not the things I wanted. Okay, the monk told me that he was traveling and speaking in the UK all that week, and I was welcome to come to the rest of his events, and so I did. So Jay Shetty went to all of his events. Okay, so let's just see. This thing goes the description that he's been given is really amazing. It's really entertaining to read. My first impression of the monk, whose name was Guru Ranga Das, was that he was doing something right, and later I would discover that science backs that up. In 2002, a Tibetan monk named Yongey Mingyur traveled from an area just outside Kathmandu, Nepal, to the University of Wisconsin-Madison so that researchers could watch his brain activity while he meditated. The scientist covered the monk's head with a shower cap like device, an EEG they call it, that had more than 250 tiny wires sticking out of it, each with sensors that a lab tech attended to his scalp. At the time of the study, the monk had accumulated 62,000 hours of lifetime meditation practice. As a team of scientists, some of them seasoned meditators themselves, watched from a control room, the monk began the meditation protocol. The researchers had designed alternating between 1 minute of meditation and compensation and 30 seconds of rest period. He quickly cycled through his pattern 4 times in a row, cued by a translator. The researchers watched in awe. That's an expression, by the way. At most the exact moment the monk began his meditation, the EEG registered a sudden and massive spike in activity. The scientists assumed that with such a large, quick bump, the monk must have changed positions or otherwise moved, yet to the observing eye he remained perfectly still. What was remarkable was not just the consistency of monk's brain activity turning off and on repeatedly from activity to rest period, but also the fact that he needed no warm-up period. If you're a meditator or have at least tried to calm your brain, you know that typically it takes some time to quiet the parade or distracting thoughts that marches through your mind. The monk seemed to need no such transitions period. Indeed, he seemed to be able to come in and out of a powerful meditative state as easily as flipping a switch. More than 10 years after these initial studies, scans of a 41-year-old monk's brain showed fewer signs of aging than his peers. So one greater advantage of meditation is not just meditation. There are another certain set of yogas which these foundations don't allow us to share it on the internet, because these kind of yogas are to be done under supervision by a practitionist. So I if you're doing such kind of yogas, then make sure you join any of the associations. I don't promote any of those, but I really believe in Sadhguru's foundation, that is Isha Foundation. So you can go ahead and check programs. Okay, so let's just continue. The researchers said he had the brain of someone 10 years younger. Researchers who scanned Buddhist monk Matthew Ricard's brain subsequently labeled him the world's happiest man after they found the high level of gamma waves, those associated with attention, memory, learning and happiness. So gamma waves, even I don't know much about it, but I just know that even these are the waves that these are the positive waves that trigger in your mind to give you happiness in all sort of manner, whether it be in career, in any way. Okay, so let's just continue. One monk who's off the chart may seem like an anomaly, but Richard isn't alone. 21 other monks who had their brains scanned during a variety of meditation practice also showed gamma wave levels that spiked higher and lasted longer even during sleep and than non-meditators. Okay, so after reading this, you definitely are aware that how gamma waves are important for your brains to be joyful, happy, and up your level of creativity. Okay, so why should we think like monk? If you wanted to know how to dominate the basketball court, you might turn to Michael Jordan. If you want to innovate, you might investigate Elon Musk, you might study Beyonce to learn how to perform. If you want to train your mind to find peace, calm, and purpose, monks are the experts. Brother David Rast, uh, a Benedictine monk who co founded gratefulness.org, writes, a lay person who is consciously aiming to be continuously alive in the now is a monk. Okay, so let me just repeat the phrases that is been used. A lay person who is consciously aiming to be continuously alive in the now, that is in the present, is a monk. So being aware is very important in terms of spirituality and meditation. So when you just close your eyes and you sit for meditation, so there are thoughts that come across your mind, but it is up to you. So you have to be in the present. Okay, so one of the basic methods that I use is I just, when I'm sitting into meditation, I just close my eyes and I just concentrate on the sounds that are around me. Okay, let it be AC, let it be a bird tweeting, or a clock ticking, any of that such matter. Even in my neighbor's house, if a television is running, what sound is it making? So I try to concentrate on those. So with that, you forget where or what is running in your mind, and you try and concentrate on what is going on right now at that place. Okay, so this is one method with which you can try meditating. Okay, so let's just continue. Monks can withstand temptation, refrain from criticizing, deal with pain and anxiety, quit the ego, and build lives that brim with purpose and meaning. So this is not an overnight turnaround. So these monks really have to go through a lot to come to a stage like this, where they can withstand temptation, refrain from criticism, deal with pain and anxiety, quit the ego, and build lives. So it takes a great deal of effort, it takes a great deal of dedication, and it takes a great deal of purpose. That is the most important. Why are you here on this earth? For what purpose? So eventually everyone finds their own purpose. So let's just see if I find my purpose while reading this book. Okay. Yeah, let's just continue. Why shouldn't we learn from the calmest, happiest, most purposeful people on earth? Maybe you're thinking it's easy for monks to be calm and relaxed. They are hidden away in tranquil setting where they don't have to deal with jobs and romantic partners and rush hours traffic. Maybe you're wondering, how could think like a monk help me in the modern world? First of all, monks weren't born monks. They are people from all sort of backgrounds who have chosen to transform themselves. Matthew Richard, the world's happiest person or the world's happiest man, was a biologist in his former life. Andy Puddicombe, co-founder of the meditation app Headspace, trained to be in the circus. I know monks who were in finance and in a rock band. They grown up in school, towns and cities just like you. You don't need to light candles in your home, walk around barefoot, or post photo of yourself doing tree poses on a mountain top. Becoming a monk is a mindset that anyone can adopt. Okay, so basically this is all mindset. So but basically other than mindset, there are certain things that you should follow. If you want to become a monk, then you really have to be aware of what are the things that you have been doing. So I feel this is really important. So mindset and awareness. Okay, so monk, if if you there are monks who they say something and it turns into a reality. So this is where you have to do a lot of sadhanas, where you have to uh, do many more asanas for years together to become of that capability, to attain that capability. But I would not suggest you to do that, but because it requires also a lot of sacrifice from your side, and it also requires to put in a lot of effort. But doing meditation on a daily basis surely helps, and I've been doing meditation for around 6 to 8 months from now, and I see a great improve in my physical activity. I am much more active, I am much more awake, I'm much more alert, I'm much more aware, and the creativity level that I have is gone up. So I would rather suggest you, this is my personal experience. I don't say that you should have the same similar experience as mine, but definitely it is worth giving a shot as a bro, or as a I would suggest you to just implement meditation in your daily life and see what changes it has to offer in your life. Okay, so let's continue. Like most monks today, I didn't grow up in an ashram. I spent most of my childhood going to un-monk like things until the age of 14. I was an obedient kid. I grew up in North London with my parents and my younger sister. Excuse me. I'm from a middle class family. Like a lot of parents, mine were committed to my education and to give me a shot at a good future. I stayed out of trouble, did well in school, and trained my best to make everybody happy. But when I started secondary school, I took a left turn. I'd been heavy as a child and bullied for it. But now I lost that weight and began playing soccer and rugby. I turned to subjects that traditional Indian parents don't generally favor, like art, design, and philosophy. All this would have been fine, but I also started mixing with the wrong crowd. So, like I said, okay, so your mind is like a water. So, the people whom you surround or who be around you, so your mind starts getting those vibes from that person. So they say, right, one rotten apple spoils the whole basket of apples. So it is the same thing. Even if you are a good apple, if you are in the wrong contact, or if you are under the influence of a wrong person, then even there are chances that even you get rotten. Okay, so this is an example that I use. So make sure you are around the right kind of people who encourage you, who inspire you, who talk about innovative ideas, and who support you. That is the most important thing, and who have empathy against you. Okay, so let's just continue. I became involved in a bunch of bad stuff, experimenting with drugs, fighting, drinking too much. It did not go well. In high school, I was suspended 3 times. Finally, the school asked me to leave. I'll change, I promised. If you let me stay, I'll change. The school let me stay, and I cleaned up my act. Finally, in college, I started to notice the value of hard work, sacrifice, discipline, persistence in pursuit of one's goal. The problem was that at the time I didn't have any goals apart from getting a good job, getting married one day, maybe having a family, the usual. I suspected there was something deeper, but I didn't know what it was. By the time Guru Ranga Das came to speak at my school, I was primed to explore new ideas, a new model of living, a path that veered from the one everyone, including myself. Okay, I didn't get that. Assumed I would take. I wanted to grow as a person. I didn't want to know humility or compassion, and empathy only as abstract concepts. I wanted to live them. I didn't want discipline, character, and integrity to just be things I read about. I wanted to live them. Okay, so these are the things that you inculcate in your life, in your character. So these are deep things. So I would not like to talk upon, because you know according to psychology, it is like every mind is a lock. Okay, so every mind is a kind of a lock, so there are different keys for different kind of locks to unlock it. Okay, so I feel that, so there is no one way to go ahead and unlock your full potential. There are many ways, but find a way that best suits you, gives you inner peace, makes your mind calmer, uh, which helps your society, which helps your people who be around you, and other stuff. Okay, for the next 4 years I juggled two worlds, going from bars and steak houses to meditation and sleeping on the floor. In London, I studied management with an emphasis on behavioral science, and interned at a large consulting firm and spent time with my friends and family. And at an ashram in Mumbai, I read and studied ancient texts, spending most of my Christmas and summer holidays living with monks. My values gradually shifted. I found myself wanting to be around monks. In fact, I wanted to immerse myself in the monk mindset more and more. The work I was doing in the corporate world seemed to lack meaning. What was the point if it had no positive impact on anyone? Okay, so this guy made a choice of, he had two choices, being with the corporate world that he was good at, or being in an ashram with monks surrounded by him, which gave him a deeper meaning that he would get in his corporate world. So life is all about choices that you make. So you have two choices even today at dinner time, right? So either you can go eat healthy, either you can go eat unhealthy. So it's up to you. So you are the maker and the destroyer of your own destiny, as it is said. Many people quote on this also. So I wouldn't get deeper into this. So let's just continue. When I graduated from college, I traded my suits for robes and joined the ashram, where we slept on the floor and lived out of gym lockers. I lived and traveled across India, the UK, and Europe. I meditated for hours every day and studied ancient scriptures. I had the opportunity to serve with my fellow monks, helping with the ongoing work of transforming an ashram in a village outside Mumbai into an eco-friendly spiritual retreat. The Govardhan Eco Village, and volunteering with a food program that distributes over 1 million meals a day. If I learn to think like a monk, anyone can. If I can learn to think like a monk, anyone can. The Hindu monks I studied with use the Vedas. The Hindu monks I studied with use the Vedas as their foundational text. The title is from the Sanskrit word Veda, meaning knowledge. Sanskrit is an ancient language that's the precursor of most of the language spoken in South Asia today. You would argue that philosophy began with this ancient collection of scriptures, which originated in the era that now covers part of Pakistan and northwest India, at least 3000 years ago. They form the basis of Hinduism. Like Homer's epic poem, the Vedas were first transmitted orally, then eventually written down, but because of the fragility of the materials, palm trees and brick, it was written on those kind of leaves, I guess, palm leaves and brick bark. Okay, so it was written on palm leaves and stuff like that. Most of the surviving documents we have are at most of few hundred years old. The Veda includes hymns, historical stories, poems, prayers, chants, ceremonial rituals, and advice for daily life. Okay, if in my life and in this book, I frequently use or refer to the book Bhagavad Gita, which means Song of God. This is slowly based on the Upanishads writing from around 800 to 400 BCE. The Bhagavad Gita is considered a kind of universal and timeless life manual. The tale isn't told about a monk or meant for a spiritual context. It's spoken to a married man who happens to be a talented archer. It wasn't intended to apply only to one religion or region. It's for all humanity. Eknath Ishwaran spiritual author and professor who has translated many of India's sacred texts, including the Bhagavad Gita, calls it India's most important gift to the world. In his 1845 journal, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "I owed my friend and I owe a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us, nothing small or unworthy but large, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us." It said that there have been more commentaries written about the Gita than any other scriptures. Okay, so if you are interested, you can go ahead and buy the English version or whichever language you are familiar with, because today you can find all sort of languages in Bhagavad Gita. So if you are really interested into spirituality, I would rather suggest you to go ahead and read it. So because in the Hindu religion it is said that a man's life's all problem, okay, a person's life problems, all the solutions are there in the Bhagavad Gita. So whatever it is you're seeking for, you'll find a solution in Bhagavad Gita. So I haven't read it, but I am planning on reading it. But I have in some other books also that I would love to read. But let's just see. Whenever I'm planning, I'll make a video on that and I'll share my personal experiences on that. Okay, so let's just continue. In this book, one of my goals is to help you connect with its timeless wisdom. Another ancient teaching that were the basis of my education as a monk and that have significant relevance to the challenges we all face today. What struck me most when I studied monk philosophy is that in the last 3000 years, humans haven't really changed. Okay, so this is interesting. This is an interesting fact that I learned today. Around 3000 years, the humans haven't really changed. Sure, we are taller and on an average live longer, but I was surprised and impressed to find that the monks' teaching talk about forgiveness, energy, intentions, living with purpose, and other topics in ways that are as resonant today as they have must been when they were written. Even more impressively, monk wisdom can largely be supported by sciences, as we'll see through as we'll see throughout this book. For millennials, monks have been lived that meditation and mindfulness are beneficial, that gratitude is good for you, that service makes you happier, and more than you will learn in this book. They develop practices around these ideas long before modern science could show a validate them. Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. Okay, that is true. I agree. Uh, I feel that there is something beyond everything. Okay, so there's a similar question, or you find it a joke. So, was the hen born first, or was an egg laid first? Okay, or was a chicken uh, born first, or like, okay, so it is a hen or a chicken first. So because hen to come out, so it has to come from an egg, so an egg has to be laid by a chicken. So what is what is the right answer? So people find it, so I find it really, you know there is a superpower beyond everything. So if you feel and if you embrace it, so you can uh, go ahead in life. You can find solutions for your problems like this. You can solve many other people's problems as well. You can give a lot to your society, to your fellow members, whether be it your life partner, your family members. So you have a lot of things to give if you embrace those things. So very well said by Albert Einstein. When I say how relevant the lesson, I was learning where to the modern world. I wanted to dive deeper into them so that I could share them with other people. 3 years after I moved to Mumbai, my teacher Guru Rangat Das told me he believed I would be of greater value and service if I left the ashram and shared what I had learned with the world. My 3 years as a monk were like a school of life. It was hard to become a monk and even harder to live and even harder to leave. But applying the wisdom of life outside the ashram, the hardest part felt like the final exam. Every day I am finding that the monk mindset works, that ancient wisdom is shockingly relevant today. That is why I am sharing it. These days I still consider myself a monk, though I usually refer to myself as a former monk. Since I am married, the monks aren't permitted to marry. I live in Los Angeles, which people tell me in one of the world's capital of materialism, facade fantasies, and overall dogginess. But why? But why live in a place that's already enlightened? Now, in the world and in this book, I share my takeaway from the life I have lived and what I have learned. This book is completely non-sectarian. It's not some sneaky conversation strategy, I swear. I can also promise that if you engage with and practice the material I present, you will find the real meaning, passion, and purpose in your life. Never before have so many people been so dissatisfied or so preoccupied with chasing happiness. Our culture and media feed us images and concepts about who and what we should be while holding up models of accomplishment and success, fame, money, glamour, sex. In the end, none of these things can satisfy us. Will simply seek more and more, a circuit that leads to frustration, disillusion, dissatisfaction, unhappiness, and exhaustion. I like to draw a contrast between the monk mindset and what is often referred to as the monk mind. Our monk Our minds can either elevate us or pull us down. Today, we all struggle with overthinking, procrast- procrastination, and anxiety as a result of indulging the monkey mind. Okay, the monkey mind switches aimlessly from thought to thought, challenge to challenge, without really solving anything. So, have you ever sat down and thought like your mind is completely running from here? So one moment you like this thing, and the other moment you are on that part of the uh, turf, and you're not able to stick to one position, and you're not able to make one firm decision, or you're not able to stay the way you are or the way you want to. So this is all because of the monkey mind, that like that type of a mind Jay Shetty addresses as the monkey mind. So because it keeps jumping from one thought to another, and controlling that monkey mind is the way only possible ahead. So there are many ways of controlling the so-called monkey mind is by asking reasons. The one best reason I can give you is why. Start asking questions to yourself. Why? So when you start asking questions to yourself, your monkey mind automatically calms down. So whenever you're thinking of something negative, give a third person's perspective to yourself. Okay, so if something is going on, come out of it and think why you are doing this. Okay, so that gives a lot of clarity to yourself, and in some sort it will increase your inner peace, and it will give you a little bit of happiness, I believe, because it's giving me happiness. So okay, yeah, so the monkey mind switches aimlessly from thought to thought, challenges to challenges, without really solving anything. But we can elevate the monk mind by digging down to the root of what we want and creating actionable steps for growth. The monk mind lifts us out of the confusion and distracts, and helps us find clarity, meaning, and direction. By asking why, or just questioning just questioning yourself. Like if you are in a problem, or if you for example, if you are a student, that if you are doing some engineering, or any other advanced or major study, then there is syllabus. That this is the method that I used to follow personally. There is a method that I used to follow whenever I was, I wouldn't study the entire year, and whenever there are 15 to 20 days left for the exams, I would, spread my bed with all the books, and I would get really tense, and I would think what to read, what not to read, and how to cover the entire syllabus within 20 days. So what I used to do is I used to just sit quiet, and I used to think to myself what to read, how much to read, read, how to cover all the syllabus. When you ask such questions, the schedule, or you get the answer within yourself. Okay, so many people go seeking answer somewhere out, but it is not the case. You find the answer within yourself. So that's what I wanted to share. So try finding answers within yourself, because if you start finding answers within yourself, so you don't need any third person to come and tell you what's right and what's not right for you. Okay, so here he has discriminated between monkey mind and monk mind. So I'll just show it to you over here. So here it says the monkey mind and the monk mind. So I'll just read it. Monkey mind, overwhelmed by multiple branches. Monk mind, focused on the root of the issue. Monkey mind, coasts in the passenger seat. So he's always on the passenger seat. So he tells you nonsense things, or is like he makes you distract. That kind of a mind makes you distract. Monk mind lives intentionally and consciously. Complains, compares, criticize. Monkey mind. Okay, so complains, criticize, and complain, compare, and criticize is the monkey mind, and compassionate, caring, collaborative is the monk mind. Overthinking and procrastinates, monkey mind. Monk mind analyzes and articulates. So distracted by small things, short-term gratification, demanding and entitled, changes on a whim. So all these are monkey mind characteristics. So these are few, like from his experience he has listed down a few things. So one of the major things is short-term gratification. In today's world, everyone is like they want instant gratification, they want to achieve results, they want to become successful overnight, they want to top in the exams, they want to score the highest, they want the best of the things in their house, in their lives, and all of this should happen within a moment. That's not possible. Okay, so you have to work accordingly. The monk mind says it's a long term goal, or it's a long term gain. You gain things progressively, so slowly, steadily. Okay, for that you have to be disciplined, analyze, articulate. Whether if you're doing a business or if you're studying, if you're a student, you have to think of a long term goal. You have to be disciplined, you have to stick to studying, you have to stick to things that you have to do. Analyze what is the important part of the syllabus, what is not the important part of the syllabus, what should I do, how should I cover the syllabus. Commit to the mission, vision, and the goal. Okay, so these are few characteristics about the monk mind. There are few more that I'll share. Okay, so I'll just list out the monkey mind characteristics, and then I'll go to the monk mind. Okay, amplifies negatives and fears. Okay, whenever you're fearing, whenever you have a sort of fear in your mind, because I usually used to have a fear in my mind just the moment before I used to stepping into the examination hall, or like, oh my god, what am I going to do, I don't remember anything, what all things that I have read. So in that case, what I used to do is, it is stated over here in the monk, so that I can relate to it. Works and break down negatives and fear. I used to ask questions to myself. You have read it, you know the things, it's just that the examination or the fear of you being judged by someone else. What is examination? When you pass an examination, you get the results, and you start comparing yourself with others or your friends. He scored this much, I am scored this much, I am less than him, or he's more than me, or I am more than him, he's less than me, all sort of things. Okay, I wanted first rank in my college, I wanted to be the topper in my school, whatnot. Okay, so after that, after the results come out, people start judging you. Okay, for that matter, even your parents, your relatives, people who are at your home, they start judging you, and they say, you could have done a little better, you could have done this, you could have done that. But nevertheless, everyone has their own capacity. So there is no such thing called as, you can do better. Obviously you can do better. A person who scores 90% is not called as the most intelligent guy. Okay, so even smartness level can be checked in various fields. Okay, so even a person who has 90%, who's scored 90% is not considered the smartest, but life is a greatest teacher. So the person who is successful in life is called as the greatest person. Okay, so I feel that way. So there are many lessons and there are many examinations that you have to give in your life. So you just have to be ready. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be fearful. Just be ready for it. Okay, so be ready for it means there is no set of time that you'll be ready for it. But just okay, I'm ready. Whatever comes, you take it and then you solve it. Okay, so it is one of the quotes that I read. I don't know it is who quoted this one, but it relates to entrepreneur and life as well. Okay, an entrepreneur is a person who jumps off the cliff and then assembles his plane on the way down. Okay, so if a problem comes, you accept the problem and then you find a solution to it, how to overcome it. Okay, so you are not ready for with the solution. Okay, so the problem is this, I have the solution. No, it is not the way. Take the problem to yourself, see it, analyze it, break it down, and then find a solution to it and then solve it. This is the way how life works. Okay, so these are the things I have listed between the monk mind and the monkey mind. So let's just continue. So I won't think I'll finish the first chapter also. Let's just see. I'll try my best to cover it all. Okay, thinking like a monk posits another way of viewing and approaching life, a way of rebellion, detachment, rediscovery, purpose, focus, discipline, and service. The goal of monk thinking is a life free of ego, envy, lust, anxiety, anger, bitterness, baggage. To my mind, adopting the monk mindset isn't just possible, it's necessary. We have no other choice. We need to find calm, stillness, and peace. Okay, so here it was said a monk mind doesn't have any envy, any anxiety, any anger, any bitterness, any grudge against anyone else. So to come to a stage, it is really it is the process, and I bet you will enjoy the process when you're traveling on this path. Because when you hold a grudge, when you hold anger, when you hold envy against someone else, so it is not the other person who is being hampered with mental peace, with happiness. So it is you. When you have that anger within yourself, so that person, the front person, is not aware that you are having envy and anger and grudge against him. So it is you who, the things are inside yourself. So when you hold it on to yourself, so that take out some part of your energy, and the energy that you have inside your body is not fully used at its fully potential. Okay, so this is how monk mind gives more happiness. So this is not just one of the ways. I feel it is one of the ways because uh, by doing around 6 months of meditation, I feel and I have a vibe that comes to relate it to myself. Okay, we have no other choice. We need to find calm, stillness, and peace. I vividly remember my first day of monk school. I just had shaved the head, but I wasn't wearing robes yet, and I still looked like I was from London. I noticed a child monk. He can't have been more than 10 years old, teaching a group of 5 years old. He had a great aura about him. So if people don't know what is aura, so it is a kind of vibrations that you send out to people. Okay, so you might have experienced whenever a person, and when you are in a group of people and suddenly when a person enters, so you start feeling, wow, this person is so good, this person, you suddenly start relating to that person. So that is called the vibes or the aura, whatever you call it. So he had a great aura about him, the poise and the confidence of an adult. What are you doing? I asked. We just thought they're first class ever, he said. then asked me, "What did you learn in your first day of school?" I started to learn the alphabets and numbers. What did they learn? The first thing we teach them is how to breathe. Why? I asked. Because the only thing that stays with you from the moment you're born until the moment you die is your breath. All your friends, your family, the country you live in, all of that can change. The one thing that stays with you is your breath. Wow, very deep sentence said again. This 10-year-old monk added, when you get stressed, what changes? Your breath. When you get angry, what changes? Your breath. We experience every emotion with the change of the breath. When you learn to navigate and manage your breath, you can navigate any situation in life. Already, I was being taught the most important lesson: to focus on the root of things, not the leaf of the tree or symptoms of the problem. And I was learning through direct observation that anyone can be a monk even if they are only 5 or 10 years old. When we are born, the first thing we must do is breathe. But just as life gets more complicated, for that newborn baby, sitting still and breathing can be very challenging. But I hope to do it in the book is to show you the monk way. We go to the root of things, go deep into self examination. It is only through this curiosity, thought, effort, and revelation that we find our way to peace, calm, and purpose. Using the wisdom I was given by my teacher in the ashram, I hope to guide you here. In the page ahead, I will walk you through 3 stages of adaptation to the monk mindset. First, we will let go, stripping ourselves from the external influences, internal obstacles, and fear that hold us back. You can think of this as a cleansing that will make space for growth. Second, we will grow. I will help you reshape your life so that you can make decisions with intention, purpose, and confidence. Finally, we will give, looking to the world beyond ourselves, expanding and sharing our sense of gratitude and deepening our relationships. We will share our gifts and love with others and discover the true joy and surprising benefits of services. Along the way, I will introduce you to 3 very different types of meditation that I recommend including in your practice: breath work, visualization, and sound. So these are the 3 kinds of meditation in general. Okay, all 3 have benefits, but the simplest way to differentiate them is to know that you do breath work for a physical benefit, to find stillness and balance, to calm yourself; visualization for psychological benefits, to heal the past and prepare for the future; the chanting for the physique benefit, to connect with your deepest self and universe for real purification. Okay, so even these I didn't know, so thankfully, and I'm glad that I'm starting to read this book, so I can, I'm coming to know a lot more things about meditation and spirituality. You don't have to meditate to benefit from this book, but if you do, the tools I give you will be sharper. I would go so far as to say that this entire book is in meditation, a reflection on our beliefs and values and intentions, how we see ourselves, how we make decisions, how we train our minds, and how our ways of choosing and interacting with people. Achieving such deep self-awareness is the purpose and reward of meditation. How would a monk think about this? That may not be a question you ask yourself right now, probably isn't close at all, but it will be by the end of the book. Okay, so let's just read this sentence once again. How would a monk think about this? How would a monk think about this? That may not be the question you would ask right now. Probably it isn't close at all, but it will be in the end of the book. So let's just see. what the book has to offer at the end of the day. So I've just finished the introduction, I guess. So here is the part 1. So I just finished the introduction. So let's just keep it today for the introduction. So the part 1, okay, so I'll just we'll continue this in some other, okay, so I'll just make a different or a separate video on this. So this is the introduction of Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty that you just saw. So if you found a little bit, if you're taking away even a little bit of knowledge from this book, then make sure you give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and support, because we are here all together to make a difference in our lives as well as other people's life. So yes, think like a monk, be like a monk, and stay like a monk. Have a peaceful day. Bye bye.